Thank you, everyone, to those of you that joined today. This is our second investor webinar. So for those of you who have met me before, my name is Alika Chuck. I'm co-founder and CFO of Farm Robotics, and I'll let the other guys introduce themselves too.
Yeah, my name is Marinus Dijkstra. I'm the CEO of Farm Robotics, and I'm a dairy farmer myself for the last 20 years, and came up with this idea to automate the shot giving system.
Yep, and we also have Connor moderating the session and asking questions. He's our Chief Marketing Officer. Connor, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi everyone, Connor, Chief Marketing Officer. Went to school with Alika and got my MBA from Chapman University and been on the team ever since.
Thanks. So yeah, we are automating the shot delivery process for dairy and beef cows with robotics. Really, Marinus came up with this idea a few years ago from all the headaches that he's encountered with these specific protocols for giving certain shots to animals. So Marinus, do you mind sharing just briefly the issues you kind of had with the protocols for those who haven't joined us before?
Yeah, so about I'd say about 6 years ago, we started a more intensive protocol system on our dairy called double off sync, and then we expanded our vaccination program a bit as well. And we noticed, pretty early on that our results were very different from week to week, and we really came to find out after talking to the guys, training the guys, that it really seemed to be the employees, either new employees or people, somewhat getting lazy, not giving the shots correctly, so on and so forth. And so I talked to Alika. I'm like, hey, wouldn't it be nice just to automate this process and just have constant results? And so this is about 3 years ago when we talked about that, and we decided to do a patent research and see if there was anything out there, and there wasn't. So we worked on the sorry for the noise here, my bad. So either way, we researched it, came up with there was nothing out there, so we decided to patent it and start kind of building out the idea, how to build a prototype and so on and so forth. So here we are today, with a patent in hand and trying to raise the money for building our first prototype.
Yeah, and I think today's session is really geared towards keeping you guys in the loop on what we've been working on, where we're heading, and things of those natures. So thanks for sharing, Marinus. And I think, Connor, if you want to take us into the next phase.
Yeah, so we'll just go into the Q&A phase to get people's questions answered. Some people pre-submitted questions, so we'll just start with some of those. And if you have questions in the meantime, feel free just to drop them in the chat box, and we'll get to them at the end. So the first question is, what's the current stage of the prototyping?
Yeah, so really with prototyping, what we've been working on so far in the current stage, previously, we've been working with our integrators up north. Their name is Simation, and they're connected to Siemens, which we have an investment partnership with. So Simation was really focusing on the RFID and visualization technology for this first phase in terms of really getting high accurate counts of scanning capabilities with these RFID tags. And so the next phase for them, once we hit our first milestone with WeFunder, is to move into the robotics and vision integration. But meanwhile, we are actually working with a university, CSU Chico, on constructing and testing the gate and restraint system that will hold the cow in place while she gets the shot. So I will pull that up right now to share that with you guys. Connor, do you mind letting me share real quick?
Yeah.
So I'll play this video a couple times just to kind of show you what the prototype is looking like. So essentially, once the cow is validated, she'll go into this system where a motivator will push her to the front, and a couple of actuators will wrap around her to relax and restrain her while she gets the shot. And so that robot that you see off to the side, that won't be the actual one we're using That was just for the CAD model. I'll show you the actual one in a minute. But yeah, essentially the cow comes in. As you see, she gets pushed towards the front where the head gate holds her head in place. And then the two actuators will wrap around the bottom and top, like I mentioned. And then once she receives the shot, she'll continue down to her corral. And so right now, this is the still CAD model of what it's going to look like. So right now, we're purchasing all the materials and they just started cutting the metal to start building this. So between now and May 1st is when they'll be constructing and testing. So that's currently what's going on with prototyping.
Great. And then what are the key success factors during this stage?
Yeah, I think really key success is ensuring that the correct animal is validated through the on-site RFID technology every time to really ensure, one, that she's validated, but then two, once she's in the system, that she actually receives the shot. So the second part of that really will happen once we move into the robotics and vision integration portion, like I mentioned before, which will occur once we hit our 175 milestone.
Great. And then since the last webinar, have the team found any ways to accelerate the commercialization?
You want to take that, Marinus?
Yeah, so we've been, in the last couple of weeks talking to some dairymen that actually, a couple of them approached us about possibly purchasing this once we go to market. So one of them was a very large dairy farmer out of Wisconsin. Also has a dairy in Kansas that milks about 24,000 cows between those places. And then we talked to a guy that is building a big, about 10,000 cow dairy in South Dakota with 140 cow rotary, which there we would most likely place the robot on the rotary where we probably will not need this gate system necessarily. Other than that, we've been in talks with another company to maybe go needleless to kind of, hopefully go a little bit quicker on our prototyping by utilizing technology that already exists and adding it on to our robot to, just be able to go to market, maybe a couple months faster. But, and then, prior to this, which we talked about in the last one, we do have 41 letters of intent that, that people are willing to possibly buy in the future. So I definitely think there's market validation there, and given the job situation of today, it's hard to find good labor or labor period. And so I definitely see that dairy farmers are more interested just because of that. So.
Yeah, and I think expanding too on Marinus, what he's saying on the relationship side of things too, we've been in talks with quite a few dealers in the Midwest as well as on the East Coast to potentially sell our product here in the future. So that's been going really well. We do have initial, so to speak, dealers on our team right now. Our partners, Jason and Joe, who own Specialized Dairy Services, is a dairy equipment company. And so they'll be initially helping us with sales and installation, but we're going to need to scale and need more help. So that's also what we've been focusing on, as well as potentially another revenue generator in the future. In our video, you'll see that the cow gets weighed on a scale. And so essentially, we could provide that as a add-on to our system rather than making it mandatory. So there's potential to have it as a separate revenue generator that we're currently in the works with figuring out with our Siemens rep.
And what have you guys learned during this phase of development?
I think really for me, what I've learned is the project with Chico is really foundational in the sense that it's our first proof of concept to really prove, okay, can we validate a cow, whether or not she needs a shot, and then can we trap her to, restrain and relax her to then scan and validate her again to proceed with the robotic injection. So before we get into the robotics and vision integration, all that stuff, I really think this gate and restraint system allows us to perfect the most important part right off the bat, which is ensuring that you have the right cow at the right point in time that needs that specific medication. And Marina, I don't know if you want to add on to that.
No, not a whole lot. I mean, I agree with you. I think working with Chico State has been, very, very successful. I think in getting faster to our prototype, and so yeah, just I think it's just been good. I mean, of course we're learning every day, but this is definitely potentially shows really fast if we can make this work on a large scale.
Right.
And then what does the rest of 2021 look like development wise? You guys could just walk us through like a little timeline.
Yeah. So really, right now where we're at, like I said, we're focused on the CSU Chico project at the moment. That'll go until beginning of May when the team graduates. And so after that, in the meanwhile, we're going to be continuing our WeFunder campaign. Ideally, have the capital that we need raised by summer. That way, we could finish our prototype. And assuming all goes well, we're able to complete our prototype within 6 months. So we're looking at around October, November time, assuming things keep going well on WeFunder. And then after the prototype, we intend to start pre-selling and selling initial units to early adopters in early 2022.
Great. And then we kind of touched on it, but just a little bit more directly. What is the latest on the money raise, and how much time and money will it take to deploy the first prototype?
Yeah. So right now we are at 116,000 on WeFunder, and we're awaiting a couple decisions from some larger check sizes. So we could be at 300K pretty soon, but it's still a little early to be certain on that. But in terms of how much money it'll take for the prototype, it'll really take up until our 550 milestone. So like I said, we're at 116, and once we get to 550, we can then deploy those funds to build our unit in 6 months.
And then we're only 66% of the stated goal, the first milestone of 175,000. What happens if we don't raise enough capital before the campaign closes?
Though I'm very confident that we are going to exceed the 175, what happens if we don't reach it is all investors get a refund on their investment.
And then where do we stand with the technology development? How much more until we see the first minimum viable product put into use?
Marinus, do you want to take that, or Connor, do you want
Yeah,
to?
so money wise, it'd be up to the 500,000 on WeFunder would finish our prototype and installed on our own dairy. So I mean that would be definitely the ultimate goal to get to that. We do think once we get to that 175 and are able to purchase the robot, we can definitely do a proof of concept.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily with giving the shot, but at least be able to show that we can. That we are able to do it. And I think once we have that, we will have some investors that we talked prior that basically said, like, once we get to proof of concept, they are willing to invest. So, like I said, there's really no worry of not be able to get it done once we get to the 175. It just would be nice to get to that 500,000 just to move on a little bit faster pace.
Yeah.
And then touching on that, like, it's nice how we're kind of raising the money because we are able to pull the money out as we go. So once we hit that 175, we can go on and purchase the robotic arm and other materials, and we don't have to wait until we raise $1 million to get started. Like we've already shown, the gate system's already been starting in development. Those parts are ordered. Cymation's been working on the RFID and vision. So it's nice to see that the ball is still rolling, although we are still raising the money. So progress is still being made. And then the next question is, who does Connor's hair? I seriously need someone to help me with my flow. I do my hair. Key is use a hair dryer. Takes 5 seconds. Helps the flow. But anyway, is there some reason why you don't use the standard chute that is modified to have a push-up bar and appropriate gaps for robotic arm access?
You want to take that, Marinus?
Yeah, I just read that question. The reason being why we didn't use a traditional chute, everything works on hydraulics on a traditional chute, and it's very intensive for the cow. And we really don't think we need the intensity like a regular squeeze chute does. The Holsteins are a bit calmer, and they are really used to routine. And so we decided to go. I mean, we did look definitely at the traditional one and took a lot of ideas off of that. Hydraulics is pretty dangerous. You're using a lot of pressure, and normally with those chutes, there's humans there to operate them, and so you kind of have a better feel as a human. So we decided to go with air pressure and regulators to not overdo it, and there's just less moving parts in our case. And like I said, I mean it's not as intensive. It's a little quicker to just do 2 bars around her. We cannot have her in a lockup necessarily, because otherwise the robot cannot reach it. So we decided to do more of a cutout within the gate for her head to be placed in and still have enough space for the robot. So there was definitely a lot of comparisons, but we decided to build it, basically ourselves to be able to overcome those issues with the original gate. And then Chico State, on the other hand, is really not charging a lot of money actually no money for labor, and it's really just parts. And I think us building our own chute is pretty close to what it would have been the same to buy a squeeze chute off the shelf. So those are a few reasons why we decided to do our own. Hopefully that answers the question.
And is it realistic to sell in less than a year from gathering the first data point for even basic proof of concept?
Now, I think it is. We have our own dairy, which we can do a lot of on-site testing without having to wait on other people. So I definitely think once we get our first prototype and install it on our dairy, I do think it's realistic to be able to go to market, especially when it comes to rotaries. Since the rotaries don't need the gate system necessarily, we were able to place it right on the rotating milking platform and be able to give the shot right there. So there's a lot less infrastructure, a lot less construction involved. So that's why we think we should be able to go to market within a year.
And if anyone else has any questions, feel free to come off mute or put it in the chat box and I'll read it off.
Go ahead and follow up on that proof of concept question, if you don't mind. Well, I was thinking, if I understood correctly, it'll be some period of time between now and the rest of the year before you would have the robotic arm. And so I was thinking you would have perhaps a lot more challenges getting all of the kinks worked out of that and the proof of concept data you would need to take for the point of sale information. So that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, Marinus, did you have a response, or do you want me to respond?
Yeah, so I do have a response to that. I mean, the robotic arm itself, it's an off-the-shelf robot, so it doesn't necessarily need a lot of modifications on the robotic arm itself. It comes with vision and so forth. So it's there's not a lot of stuff that necessarily needs to be done on the robotic arm. You want to, if you have a follow-up on that, Alika?
Yeah, no, I think going further, I mean, we're pretty close to the 175 goal, and like Connor said, as soon as we do get that, we can purchase the robot. And it seems like we're working with Fanuc for the robotic arms, and they're pretty efficient in terms of getting arms to customers in timely manner. So I think, again, it is pretty realistic to look forward to going to the market in a year or less, because again, we're not building the robotic arm from scratch, and I think we will have enough time to gather the correct data points we need to prepare for customer acquisition and things of that nature.
So is the drug delivery part also off the shelf?
So the drug delivery part, we do have to develop the end of arm tooling for if we go with needles. But if we go with air pressured, we would have to, the company we're currently talking to, we have to configure their injector onto our robotic arm. And so to an extent, that portion would be off the shelf, but we would have to obviously modify it to make sure it works with our system.
Yeah, and then to add on to that, Cymation, gave us that quote, which obviously has an end arm tooling in that, and they gave us about a 4-month lead time. Once we come up with the funds. So, and then, like I say, if we are gonna go needleless, then I foresee that being able to get it done within about 2 months.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then can you explain how a needleless injection works?
Yeah, so it works with high pressure. There's 2 different systems right now. One is with CO2 cartridges, which is more of like a mobile system, and then one is on compressed air that runs right off the air on a milk stalls. And so what it does, it has a really small stream of air, but it's really high pressure that separates the skin and the muscle. And then it injects the fluid, or, in a sense, really drips the fluid in that wound. And then, obviously, as the pressure goes away, it closes itself back up. And it's a lot less intensive than a needle. And it goes just as deep into the tissue. And it disperses a little bit more in the tissue, too. So you have a bit better absorption instead of having like a little pocket of fluid. It kind of disperses into the tissue better, and you have a quicker and better absorption of the product. The only thing with air, you need to have a pretty good touch to the cow and a consistent touch as this happens. Even though it is a split of a second, you cannot lose pressure on the cow, because then the air would escape. So it has kind of like an O-ring, so to speak, that holds it against the skin of the cow. And but it is already proven. There's a few dairies that use it on their milk herd, and there's a lot of calf ranches that use it for their baby calves. And then obviously the mobile one is with CO2, and you just refill or place a new cartridge in as it's running low. But yeah, it's a proven concept, and it definitely seems to be better for the cow, so they say. And obviously we don't have to dispose of needles and or clean needles. So I definitely think it's a little bit cleaner for the process. You don't want to take a dirty needle to the next cow and so on and so forth. And we obviously are going to design a cleaning system to be able to do that, but it's just a bit simpler way of doing it.
Great. Yeah, and if anyone else has any questions, feel free to come off mute or put it in the chat box. Otherwise, we'll wrap up in a minute or so.
Yeah, I think maybe touching on that point, we are excited with where we're heading. Like I said, we have a few individuals that we're waiting on for larger check sizes, ranging between 10K to 100K. So we're hoping for the best, and we think things will work out, but we'll just have to see. But in the meantime, feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions. We'd love to have all you on board if you're not already. And so, yeah, thank you so much for just tuning into today's investor webinar. And we're happy to be as transparent as we can about our processes and our business.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for your time. And hopefully this is very informative for all you guys. And like Alika said, feel free to ask any questions if they come up later, email or call us, and or maybe be on the next webinar next month. I think these are very productive webinars, and we really appreciate you guys' time.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next month if we don't hear from you before then.
Sounds good. Take care, everyone.